Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a special online event today called Discover the Holographic Enneagram, a multidimensional map for holistic transformation. My name is Stephen Dinan. I'm the founder and CEO of the Shift Network, and I'm delighted to be with you here, learning right alongside with you from one of the real masters of the Enneagram world, who is helping us to open to a more multidimensional spiritual foundation for this work with personality that really helps liberate more of our potential. Her name is Jessica Dibb, and she's known as one of the depth teachers of the Enneagram, one of their favorite faculty here at Shift. She's taught for decades the highest echelons and trained people worldwide, and also been the founder, spiritual director, and principal teacher of the Inspiration Community School. So she's really a remarkable soul, and welcome to, and also the host of our Enneagram Summit. So thank you so much for joining us here today, Jessica.
Thank you so much, Stephen. It's an honor to be with you, and I have the highest regard and gratitude for you and for the Shift Network for your truly authentic vision of a quantum shift in consciousness for our planet.
Well, thank you. And you're helping us to create that. So I want to say right up front, we're going to have this hour with Jessica, and we're going to go into some fascinating terrain. And we also have a chance to go much deeper with her in a brand new program, a really robust program called the Holographic Enneagram. So stay tuned. We'll share a little bit more about that towards the end of the hour. So Jessica, we usually start with a little bit of backstory about your relationship with the Enneagram, but we've done that a fair amount. So let's start a little bit more about this concept of the holographic Enneagram. So what is it that brought you to start to see the Enneagram in a more multidimensional way, that it could really be a portal to our, the higher aspects of our being?
Loving, being loved, and ultimately being love itself is what matters more to human beings than anything else in their life. And being able to express that love creatively throughout their life is also deeply fulfilling and meaningful. So every human being wants to have a life of meaning and purpose and love. Now, there are those human beings that have not only accomplished that and embodied that, but have also been able to remember the deeper potentials and aspects of what a human being can be, both individually and collectively. And when they do that, they inspire us so much that they literally shift reality from one level of functioning to another. And I think, Stephen, that we've come to a time, as you and many people know, when while we can still be inspired by these particular souls and have many of them amongst us on the planet today, it's really imperative that it become more of a collective experience, that many of us are waking up to this level of tapping into these deepest parts of ourselves and awakening to what I'm going to call a more unitive consciousness. So that unitive consciousness both needs to be at the level of our individual humanity, which is that however I am manifesting, my physicality, my emotions, my thoughts, my spirit, my shadow, my gifts, that there needs to be some way that in the field of a radical, unconditional love, no part of myself is rejected. Absolutely none. No part of any of ourselves is rejected, nor is it made higher or lower even. This is where we come to the idea of a hologram, that even in the tiniest particle of the Big Bang exists all of the knowing and the energy and the map, in a sense, of the Big Bang. And even in what might seem like the darkest or most delusional or most suffering part of ourselves lies the whole map of our greatest potential. And then when you apply this to the idea or the knowing that we need to learn how to collectively be unitive, it takes on even a more profound dimension. So what I have found increasingly, the more that I work with the Enneagram, is that it is a model, a map, a brilliant, precise map that both shows us our unitive nature in ourselves and with one another, and reflects what all of the great spiritual traditions express, which is that there is only one. It simultaneously is able to express very nuanced differentiation and expressions of the individual and of the one in all of its forms. And that is just, it's a profound holographic and multidimensional map. Just think about it. It's saying beyond a shadow of doubt that everything is one, everything leads home, every differentiation leads home, and it's also saying that that home is the birthplace of all these differentiations. Now, Dan Siegel, beautiful psychiatrist that has really talked to us about mind, has shown how the highest levels of integration occur when the varying differentiations and diverse expressions of our brain, for instance, or our self, are nourished and allowed to flower, and then the linkages between those things are promoted so that there becomes a unified field. And what is happening for me, even this year, there's just this emerging felt sense that the Enneagram is a way to lead us into this unitive consciousness where we don't even talk anymore about lower nature and higher nature, or body versus spirit, or, unconsciousness versus consciousness, or shadow versus the greatest gift. That we see, and I'm really excited about creating this new course, by the way, completely from this perspective, that we see the inherent gift in each person, and then we understand that every bit of suffering, every delusion that they have, every bit of bad behavior, if you will, is actually reflecting the gift that they have and reflecting their intense curiosity and drive to get home to that. And so this holographic thing is how I'm going to start to be able to explain and share with the world that as we touch each part of ourself, even the shadow, even parts that we have any sense of shame about, or like that's not really a good behavior, we completely let go of even that languaging. And we see it all as a doorway precisely to the one. And I think that that kind of radical shift in even the spiritual path is needed, because we have tended with people, when they are able to have spiritual experiences, for instance, or experiences of psychological wholeness even, the wounded inner child parts of ourselves, the parts that have suffering too at any age, the wounded parts of our psyche tend to feel so relieved by being in these experiences of wonder, of a sense of wholeness, of a sense of feeling good enough about ourselves, of a sense of feeling one with the force, God, the divine, the beloved, that it's very, very easy at that point to begin to overlook these deeper wounds that are within us, and the whole phenomenon of spiritual bypassing can happen. And it's also really easy to create a spiritual superego that's really no healthier than our neurotic superego. But now there's some part of our inner critic that's comparing us to this ideal of what we could be if we would just remember who we are. And all of these things create very subtle, but then eventually very overt places of shadow and unconsciousness. And even more importantly, to say it, we are rejecting parts of ourselves and one another. And if we are looking to birth a culture and a world for ourselves and each other in which we're moving from a personality of fear, a culture of fear and personality to a culture of love and creativity, then we are going to have a radical shift in consciousness that will create a quantum shift that has to do with the not rejecting of anything, any part of ourselves or anyone else. So I think this is where the Enneagram can excel, and I really am so excited to have this opportunity to begin to articulate this slightly more nuanced way, but I think powerfully impactful.
So in a way, kind of what I'm hearing is that it's like it's like we're getting into the unity through the diversity, that we're seeing like each of the sort of the specific ways that our personality and our type kind of manifest as a kind of a window into the larger wholeness. So as we embrace each, then we become more fully accepting of all of it. Is that part of what you're saying?
Absolutely, Stephen. And even to add to what you're saying, because I think we've already been at that level and kind of some of us have been teaching it from that level, but I'm even saying now that there's still this tendency, for instance, to think of like the instinctual drives in the body center as more a lower consciousness, if you will, or to think of our wound and our passion, as we call it in the Enneagram, the passio, the suffering, to think of it as sort of less desirable, and to think of, our higher aspects of self. And I'm suggesting that when we do it from this holographic way, we will not even need to delineate that this is lower and this is higher. We're going to see that every aspect, even the parts of us that seem delusional, if we bring presence to them, we'll see that they actually have an intelligence in them that's pointing us towards home. So for instance, in this course that's coming up, I've never taught it this way, this precisely, and I've never heard it taught this way, this precisely. We're going to look at the potential, the gift, the transmission of the domain and the energy that each person's type is. And then we're going to speak to, like, what is the wound, the loss of disconnection from that? What's the incredible pain and suffering? What's the passion that's created from that? What's the mental fixation that's a compensation? We're going to go through the whole thing, the instinctual drives, the wings, the arrows of dynamism, integration, and we're going to do the virtue and the whole idea. And as we hit each one of those notes, we're going to look at how, even in its unconscious form, it's actually a movement home to our real self. And I think that I can feel it in myself. It's really a shift, again, from lower and higher consciousness to a more unitive structure. It's a shift from shame-based and sin-based ways of looking at our negative behaviors, or what we call negative behaviors, to a redemptive model and even heroic model. And so we're just in for a wild journey, I'm sure of it. And I can feel the transformational potential for the individual and for the collective.
Yeah, so part of what I'm hearing is that there's an intelligence in every aspect of ourselves that's leading ourselves home, that there's redemptive. And so by making that pivot, then we're able to re-honor and reintegrate what is the wisdom in all the aspects of ourselves, rather than kind of seeing it as like, a problem to fix.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just like a carpenter, Jesus was a carpenter, by the way, just like a carpenter's vocation is just as pivotal to our world as, the president of a country. We take out the sort of hierarchy of self, if you will, and we actually immerse ourselves in a field of radical presence, radical unconditional love. And what can come forth from that is, I think beyond our current imagination, but I know that we're needing this kind of quantum shift at the level of the psyche and soul. So I'm looking forward to this.
Cool. Well, let's talk about how does this relate to, I think a lot of people are coming to this call, they're coming out of the recent summit, they're really curious and have a basic understanding oftentimes around their own personality type. So when you apply this holographic lens, how does that affect how we think of our particular type and how we relate to it?
Beautiful. So, you can think of it as all of these dimensions of expression, shall we say, about reality itself. If you just take a deep breath right now and you look at reality physically, you look out your window and you see reality, you're just right in the room and you see all the furniture that's been made and all of that, you can experience very immediately a kind of power. Like there is immense, unbounded power that existence is. It's infinite. At the same time, you can also experience immense, unbounded beauty and creativity and intelligence and holding quality or responsiveness, which we might call love, and potential, which we might call radiance, and a kind of infinite depth, like infinity in a grain of sand, like William Blake talked about. Like all of these different dimensions are there. And what happens to an individual, and we know that some of this may be biological, we actually know that it's temperament, it's there from early on in a child's brain structure, likely, certainly in their temperament. This has been studied by Thomas and Chess before the modern Enneagram even came into existence in the 1970s. That what happens is we all have a innate biological capacity to remember one part of that or one aspect of all the multitudinous expressions of the Big Bang, of the beloved, of the one, of God, of the force, whatever you want to call it. And it's probably that we have a biological proclivity for it, and also that it's what our soul loves most. And when we feel the loss of contact with that, entering into, shall we just say, the shadow and the unconsciousness that still exists within the human species, it is a pain like no other. It is the core wound of our being, to feel separated from the wholeness of existence itself and the particular aspect that we are biologically encoded for and have a gift for. And so what we do is this separateness creates a sense of separateness in ourselves, and then that separate one wants to try to get back to the thing it feels it has lost. And we all do it by trying to become the thing that we've lost. So we try to become the power, and that produces the Enneagram type or personality of type 8. The actual essential self or authentic self is just power and vibrancy and immediacy, and life force, and it exists in all of us. But the people who have a particular proclivity for it and a gift with it, it's a particular wound, so they spend all their somatic, emotional, and cognitive energy trying to be that power, trying to create the sense of that life force and that intensity in everything that they do. And so, then they, for instance, because of the sort of unconsciousness. They try to have power over other people. They try to not let anybody make them feel vulnerable. They try to control things. They try to have a sense of justice, that they're going to set things right. They pump up themselves to constantly be exuberant and exultant about life, and they can be, therefore, we can experience them as insensitive, and we can experience them as controlling, and we can experience them even as abusive. And what I'm saying about the holographic approach is that if we go through the particularities of the map, the actual wound, the actual shadow, the passion, which in this case is called lust, the fixation, which is objectification, where the 8 tends to objectify everything and just try to put the world in the way that they want it to make it, life really happen. When we look at each of those from the perspective of that, they have a haunting memory of the unlimited, boundless power that God is, that the Big Bang is, that love is, that everything is. And every little way that they're manifesting is actually an attempt to try to make that come back into being. And if we could stop even making it like lower and higher, but sort of almost honor the attempt of the heart, the attempt of the fixation, the attempt of the shadow, and move out of this shame-based model, we would just open up faster healing, much greater transformation, and a kind of holographic and quantum shift into a unitive field that allows that being to be connected to that great gift and that quality of boundless power and all the other 8 expressions and qualities as well.
Yeah, kind of what I'm getting from this is that there's a way in which you're moving away from the oppositional energy internally that's kind of keeps things frozen, and that it's like when you can bless and integrate and honor and it sort of like comes back together and can move forward, and there's more energy available for that evolutionary propulsion forward. How does this connect? So I like what you just said about the 8. We said we would talk also about the heart qualities of the Enneagram virtues. How do the work with the heart qualities of the virtues connect with what you're talking about?
So, let me talk about, I'll take one type from each center. And I know we might want to, shall I do this one piece as a little experiential practice for everybody?
Sure.
Okay, wonderful. So we're going to take everybody we just did the 8, which is the entryway into the body center. There's 8, 9, and 1, and the 8 is the first place we enter the body center. We're moving into the heart center now, and it's 2, 3, and 4, and the 2 would be the entry point. So I'm just going to work with 2 and the wound in the heart, the passion, and what happens in the transformation to the virtue, and say it a little bit from the holographic perspective in our practice. Now, here's the thing. You don't have to be a 2, because in our most potentiated nature, in our most integrated state, we are actually going to be accessing all 9 qualities, regardless of what our primary fixation, our primary gift are. So I'm going to ask us all to get in touch with this energy. So it'll be you're a 2, or it's just the 2 in all of us. So if you would gently either close your eyes or keep them slightly open, whichever helps you to feel both relaxed and alert at the same time. And turn your attention to the sensations of your body and whatever feelings are arising in your heart right now. And take some slower and deeper breaths so that you're inviting yourself to experience what you're actually sensing and feeling in this moment. There is an aspect of reality in which gravity and electromagnetic forces and force fields of all kinds hold everything together. And there is a holding quality of existence. And when a person is relaxed enough to be really present in the moment, even in the midst of suffering experiences, horrifying experiences, this holding quality can be felt. And we call it love. And particularly we call it the responsiveness of love. There is something in life that wants to and does react and respond to the needs of existence. And when a person is able to be awake to that, they are a vehicle of that love and that responsiveness. And that energy exists within each one of us. It's in every cell of our body, every feeling of our heart, every thought of our mind, and every atom of our spirit. And I want you to take a deep breath and let yourself remember a time in your life when you did feel unconditionally loved by yourself or another or the divine. And let your whole body remember what it felt like and what happened to your heart in that moment. And even what happened to your perceptions of yourself and others and life. Keep breathing deeply. Let this feeling build. Now, this is the domain or the expression of essence or the force or the divine or reality that is love, that is holding, that is responsive. What happens in the two heart and the two in all of us is that when we feel separated from this, which usually happens sometime between conception and the first year of life, when we feel separated from the ongoing, unbroken experience of it, the pain is unbearable. To feel that love has been cut off, that responsiveness has been cut off, it is a huge experience of abandonment. And right now, you might allow yourself, and you might even want to put a hand over your heart, to feel the experience of abandonment. We have all known it. We have abandoned ourselves. We have been abandoned by others. We have felt abandoned by the source itself. And what the two heart in all of us does in response to that is it decides that I'm going to love to try to save the day here. I'm going to become loving. I'm going to be exceptionally kind, exceptionally responsive, exceptionally sweet. I'm going to bring love into every room that I'm in, every person that I'm with, and I'm going to make sure that they see it. Now, I've talked about it initially like, okay, yes, it's beautiful to want to bring love, but what the delusion is that there's a separate I that needs to bring that love when actually the love is actually here. It's just that we've had experiences of it feeling cut off. And so this separate ego forms a central core wound, a passion that we call in the Enneagram pride. And pride is the trying to rise above constantly our own vulnerabilities and needs so that we can be there for another. And we started to feel the intrusive nature that can have sometimes, because it's sort of like, I'm going to love and I'm going to make sure that you know that you're loved. And I start to be the one that knows what that love would be like. And yes, twos are exceptionally good at attuning to our needs and giving that love, but you can see how it can go down a dark path as well. And we call that pride. I'm both going to bring the love, and I'm not going to acknowledge that I need anything or that I'm vulnerable. And the darkest part of that is I'm not going to receive God's blessing for me. Because I don't need anything. Everything in me is like, okay, let's give it to someone else. Now, let's take a deep breath. That can, even in the Enneagram community, where I have felt some of the most authentic human beings ever, because they are looking at their shadow and their wound with a lot of objectivity and compassion. But even there can be a slight shaming of all of this. And I'm going to invite us now to take a deep breath and to feel something else. This pride, this passion, we call it, this core suffering of pride, what's actually beautiful about it and a doorway home to the real love is that there is an intrinsic knowing that it is possible to be in love all the time. There may be a delusion about it that there's a separate I that's going to bring it, but there's a faith. There's a belief that love is possible and that it's always here. And so what if in ourselves right now we held that part of us that sometimes thinks we're being so wonderfully loving and people aren't getting it and they're not receiving it and it hurts us? What if we held that part of us that just tries to be so loving and rise above our own needs and thinks we're being so loving, and we felt instead the fierceness of knowing that love is real. Love is real. I'm going to ask us all to take a deep breath. Love is real. And it's never not here. And just notice what might be happening a little differently in your body, in the sensations of your body, and in your heart, and in your perceptions of yourself and others in life. If you move from, oh, there's this part of me that's sometimes gnarly and trying to force my love on others, or thinks I know what the loving way is to do things, and I've got to let go of that and trust that love is here. See, that's the usual Enneagrammatic way of looking at it, and it's beautiful, it's transformative. But what if I take it even a step deeper and I just see even that dark impulse is coming from a knowing that love is real and that it is possible to be in love, of love, as love, every moment. That creates so much more spaciousness to hold these very sensitive, wounded, tender parts of ourselves. So, Stephen, that's just a small, very small taste of the way that we're going to orient ourselves about all the parts of the Enneagram map, the fixation, the delusions, the shadows, the wounds, the instinctual drive, self-preservation, social and sexual, all of it. And you asked me about the heart qualities, so let me take us that one step further. So that when we are able to do what I just talked about, that pride dissolves, we are welcomed ourselves into the field of love. And the heart develops what we call as the virtue of humility. And humility is understanding that, yes, love is real and it's always here. And it shines on all of us and in all of us, including ourselves. And it comes from a source that is greater than our individual self. It comes from the collective self, from God. It comes from everyone. And the virtue then in the heart of humility is not a superego sense of humility. It's not like an idealized sense of humility. It's an actual softening into receiving and understanding that love is real and it's everywhere, and none of us are this sole person that knows what love would be in this moment. And that is something that happens with all of the types. There's a conversion in the heart of whatever the suffering was to the virtue. And from the holographic perspective, we're going to take off even another level of shame about it so that it's completely objective and nothing that we are is rejected or seen as dark in any way.
Well, I love that. And it's the way you're depicting this is very kind of alchemical, that what was once we think of in some subtle way as negative or base or, darkened, that it becomes gold when we bring our full loving awareness and presence to it in this really all-embracing way. How does this connect? We said we would talk today also about the holy ideas and how they connect to your holographic model. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about the holy ideas, which is sort of a more advanced teaching, but also is applicable to how we relate to the Enneagram in a way that's this holographic model.
Yes. So the holy ideas are how the mind is able to perceive reality when it's not gripped by fear, when it's not seeing itself and others and life and reality from the place of separation. And many people would call that non-dual consciousness. From the perspective of the Enneagram, I want to say that non-dual consciousness is real, and it's not non-dual to reject dualism. And the Enneagram also uses a triadic nature with everything that it does, to understand that there are two, and there are poles. There is masculine, feminine, for and against, and all that. And there's something else that's arising as a result of the contact of those two places. And that place is highly emergent. It can't even really be predicted. And so when we talk about the holy idea and the perceiving of reality from a non-dual perspective, we're talking about being able to see all levels of something, of an experience. The non-dualism is that we can see all the particularities, all the nuances, all the diversity, all the differentiations, and we can see that all of those are portals and gateways to the one, and that no matter how far and how many infinite capacities we would open to, each one of them would also be a doorway to the one, and that one would then give birth to more capacities. So in each of the types, as a result of our pain and suffering and the formation of a passion, a way that our heart is going to try to deal with this sense of loss, we also form, to support that, what we call a fixation. It's a habit of our mind, or it's a habit of our mental capacity, our way of perceiving ourselves and others, that we feel will protect us from this terrible hurt ever happening again. And we form a personality around this habit of mind. So I'm going to take us into the head center now, which is types 5, 6, and 7, and the entry point is type 5. So type 5 is aware, remembers as a part of their temperament that this reality, both in its existence and in its non-existence, both in its white holes and in its black holes, in all of it, is highly intelligent. And there's an order to it, there's a clarity to it, there is an incredible knowing, a deep intelligence that sometimes we see come out in a human being when they have a great discovery. And even then, as the poet Iqbal says from Pakistan, the great mystic, that this is only the beginning of another knowing, which itself has no end. So the 5 knows this aspect, this expression of the beloved, this expression of reality as this infinite intelligence. And the 5 in all of us knows that. And when we feel a loss of that, the result is a terror. It's a feeling like there is no map, there is no intelligence. We're going to go down. It's just going to be utter chaos and confusion and harm. And so for the 5 who feels that most acutely of all the types, because that's where their greatest gift lies, there's going to be a real withdrawal from reality, like a real withdrawal from physical contact in an attempt to become the knower, in an attempt to become the one who can figure it out again and bring some piece or all of the map back to us. So the fixation here is the conceptualization of reality, that rather than actually living it, we conceptualize it, we create ideas about it, we create, in a sense, images, but they're intellectualized images. They're knowledge about reality that we then use as like guideposts or markers to try to help us navigate the intensity of emotion and the intensity of the ups and downs of an ordinary human life, let alone the intensities of great accomplishment and great tragedy. And this conceptualizing keeps the 5 and the 5 in all of us in a disembodied state, which is actually removed from the real intelligence that is reality itself. Now, that fixation, if we don't see it as a negative thing, we understand it from a holographic perspective, we can see that it actually is aligned with the holy idea of what we're going to call omniscience, where everything can be known, everything is aware, everything is a part of the intelligence of reality. And I want to say with reverence, because people don't sometimes understand this about 5s, they can feel to be very cold, that's stepping back and conceptualizing. There is a truth in it. And the truth is that we've all been playing too small. We're all just worried about our own little aspect of reality. And conceptualizing is actually a way to step back, to enter into the awe of what is here, and to understand that it's much bigger than just the little piece that we're trying to perceive. That there's some philosophical underpinning to it, or some ramification or meaning to the knowledge itself. Now that really changes, it's a slight shift of the dial again, but it really changes conceptualizing from a kind of limited behavior to a redemptive and heroic attempt to show all of us and to show ourselves that there's much more here than meets the eye. So as we look at it that way, and we could even do this right now, we could take a deep breath, take many deep breaths, keep breathing deeply, and each time you breathe, have the sensation of awareness that each breath is activating, animating, and turning on your brain. It's making it possible for your brain to function. And so there can be a feeling of your brain lighting up, which is actually true. And so if we continue to breathe that way, and we notice, and the 5s in particular, any of our capacity to remove ourselves from reality and kind of conceptualize and hide, Let's now instead, from the holographic perspective, see that this is our way to try to take a stand for that there's something bigger here than just the little piece of our life, and we have to see a bigger picture. And if you breathe now into that impulse and into that knowing and into that capacity to see a bigger picture, your mind actually relaxes from the conceptualizing and distancing and becomes delighted to wonder and be curious and just have open mind, as the Buddhists would say. And so that brings you in contact with the holy idea of omniscience, which is that everything can be seen, can be known, and is aware of itself if we just show up.
Beautiful. Well, Jessica, it's really clear that you have just a vast amount of knowledge of these, of both the Enneagram and these other different levels of consciousness that then apply to how the Enneagram is a vehicle for our liberation and ultimately our healing. So really interesting everything you've shared today already, and I want to spend some time explicitly talking about your upcoming program. I know you're super excited about this program because it's a brand new offering. It's really taking things to a next level. It's taking people who have the basic level of understanding, or at least a good sense of what the Enneagram is about, but offering it as much more of a vehicle for liberation and ultimately for healing all this schisms within ourselves and our society. So it's called the Holographic Enneagram, Healing the Wounds of Separation, Finding Wholeness, and Embodying Your Gifts. And you can find it laid out in a lot of detail at theholographicenneagram.com. Again, that's theholographic, HOLOGRAPHIC, enneagram.com. And this is a very robust journey. It's going to be a 13-week journey, has a lot of different levels of content and teachings. It's really going to be very transformational to take this journey. And it has 11 teaching modules with Jessica, as well as 2 integration sessions that are going to be led by Enneagram coaches that are trained by Jessica and interspersed throughout the course. So a lot of value. And Jessica, I'd love for you to share in your own words what you're so excited to bring forward in this new program.
Well, first of all, Stephen, the invitation is for both beginners and very experienced people with the Enneagram, so really any level of person. For the beginners, I'm excited because if they can approach it from the beginning, from this even more non-shame-based approach, from this more holographic approach, I think their trajectory with the Enneagram can just accelerate exponentially. For people that are more experienced with it, I think you may discover, like I'm discovering in myself, that this slight turn of the dial and this slight elevation of unitive consciousness around the whole thing and complete non-rejection produces some kinds of immediate results that just change the whole tenor of your life, the way everything feels. And because of that, I'm going to really cultivate experiential practices in all 3 centers. So in each class, there's going to be, I've just been wanting to do this for years, Stephen, and I'm so grateful to the shift that you're creating the platform for it, that there's going to be a 1-hour immersion experience and download experience of each type, feeling the whole map. Usually a session will share some trajectory of that map, like the wound to the essence, or the fixation to the holy idea, or the instincts, and we sort of study them separately. Here, what we're going to do is we're going to take an immersion through every part of the map for that type. The instincts, the arrows, the wings, the holy idea, the virtue, the wound, the shadow, the fixation, the essence, all of it. Because we want to actually immerse ourselves in the whole map. We want to feel how every other part is connected to every other part. And I'm going to be very mindful of sharing how every piece is connected to that wholeness that type represents in all of us. So we'll start with a 5-minute transmission of the energy experientially, like what is beauty, what is love, just like an actual immersion. And then as we go through those other pieces of the map, we'll show how each one of them is reflective of that transmission. So for the beginners, amazing way to be introduced, and I think will save you years really of other ways that you might use the Enneagram, kind of jumpstart you. And for experienced people, it's that slightly new perspective and also gaining all these experiential exercises, which if you're a professional or a coach, a therapist that uses the Enneagram, you'll have all of these. So we'll take that 1-hour immersion through the types, and then we'll do a 15-minute deep experiential exercise through the whole map. And then we'll have a half-hour of Q&A. So I'm just excited to join with people who want to have a quantum level of how we work with the Enneagram. I expect there to be a lot of emotional, physical, and cognitive shifts for people during this course. And really excited that we're going to have 2 weeks of integration where some of these coaches, which will introduce them to you on the webpage, they're not just Enneagram coaches. All of them have also had deep training in breath and breath work with me. They've also been trained in essence work, which is a very intense kind of understanding of the core of what we really are through the Enneagram. And some of them are certified coaches as well as Enneagram teachers. So these team members are very, very accomplished human beings at a multidimensional level. So those are some of the reasons that I'm very excited about this new course, Stephen.
Well, we're very excited as well. And I really feel like you're helping us take the Enneagram work to a next level of transformative power. So again, you can see all the details laid out at theholographicenneagram.com, theholographicenneagram.com. So you can get a sense for the modules. There's the activating the holographic transformational power, love, and wisdom of the Enneagram. There's the awakened 8, the awakened 9, the awakened 1. In a way, each type is a portal to a different kind of awakened presence. So the 8 leads to embodied vibrant presence. The 9 leads to embodied harmony and oneness. Each of these is like an aspect of the larger whole that we are then working with in this holographic way that Jessica has really illuminated. And so when we work with all of the types in this way, we become the wholeness, the oneness, the fullness that all of us know is ultimately our birthright and our true identity. So you can, again, see all the details laid out. You get 11 live class sessions with Jessica, which includes a lot of class time. There's teachings, there's interactive Q&A. This is video-based, so you have the extra rapport and connection around that. You get video recordings plus audio recordings. Weekly exercises and practices. There's a Facebook community, and you get PDF transcripts. People love this because then you can really go back over, get the word-for-word transmission, and dial it in and keep working with it. There's also a number of extra bonuses on the page that you can see. There's something called Inner Work and the Instincts, bringing presence to your instinctual drives. This is a video teaching with Jessica and Russ Hudson, who's another of our favorite depth teachers of the Enneagram. They do a lot of work together, so really bring out a lot of complementary insights. There's also a audio teaching with Jessica, Russ, Helen Palmer, and David Daniels called Practitioner Principles for Co-Creating Dynamic, Empowering, Enduring Change with Clients. This is particularly valuable if part of your interest in the Enneagram is to apply it in a context where you're in a healing or transformational role with others. There's a audio recording from Jessica and Voices the Enneagram in Their Own Voices, the Type Speak. Jessica, you want to share a little bit about what that bonus is?
That is such an exciting bonus, Stephen. Again, something that I dreamed of for doing for a long time. With each of the types, I had a dialogue, a conversation with 2 people from that type who had done a lot of work with the Enneagram and really understood it from a depth perspective and felt like their lives had really changed. And I asked each one of them, what was the major transformational shift? what was the thing that helped them most? How has their life changed? And so you have 18 people speaking, 2 of each type, about how depth transformation happened for them through the Enneagram. And it's really striking. And people who have listened to it, it's 3 hours of material. So it's quite in depth, and it's really impactful.
That's fantastic. There's also an audio meditation with Jessica and Russ Hudson called the 3 Centers Meditation. There's one with a dialogue with Russ and Cynthia Bourgeau, original ideas behind the Enneagram, and then one with Russ Hudson and David Daniels called What Creates Transformation, the Pragmatics of Change. An amazing, amazing array of offerings. And then there's also a bonus that we're doing if you choose to sign up right away, and that's actually the Enneagram Global Summit, a full package of recordings and transcripts when you act right away, and you're also going to get $50 off when you act right away until first couple days here. So it's like when you act right away, you get the Enneagram Global Summit, you get the $10 off the price, or $50 off the price. And it's very accessible. We're doing it for $347, or you do pay a little bit more when you pay with 3 payments in full. So again, you can get all the details at theholographicenneagram.com, theholographicenneagram.com. Of course, it's going to start on July 25th and run on Thursdays at noon Pacific time. So really quite a huge value for your transformation, a whole journey you can go on with people around the world. You're getting a lot of extra bonus material, and you get the extra $50 off when you sign up today by the end of the day, actually in the first couple days. So Jessica, what a great offering this is for the world and for anybody who has been intrigued with the Enneagram as a tool for transformation. So anything that you want to still share on your heart with for folks who are considering joining you for this journey?
Yeah. So this is really going to be a community of deep caring and deep wisdom and deep presence. And this is part of why we wanted to make these additional coaches available, as well as myself, because all of them, not only will there be the free integration sessions, but they all can offer individual sessions for some fee for those of you that may want to do some individual coaching to help you with the course. And also just that I myself will be on Facebook trying to work with as many of the questions that you write in as possible. We really feel that, as the shift does, the time is now. All hands on deck. There is no time to waste, and what's needed is a kind of quantum shift, and we feel very confident. I feel very confident after working this material in myself for some time that there is this new level of really inviting ourselves into an awakened, intelligent plane of unconditional love that does not X out any of the aspects of reality that have to do with all the dimensions of love, power and gentleness, vibrancy and stillness, depth and action and all of that. And it has been such a part of the human species, even in our most honored and cherished spiritual paths, which we've all benefited from in our most humanistic inquiries through the psyche, that there's still this tendency to have higher and lower, to have kind of parts of ourselves seen as more base, as Stephen is saying. And I really feel the time we have to move out of that. In the wake of the Enneagram Global Summit, which we reached over 35,000 people this year, in over 120 countries around the globe, and we particularly had a lot of sessions dealing with diversity, marginalized populations, where trainers are telling us that the use of the Enneagram is accelerating their capacity to affect change in these communities like nothing they've ever used before. And I feel like this is one of the additional benefits that's going to come out of this class for all of us. We are going to be able to be more present as citizens of the world with every person that we come in contact. we will be seeing the gold in them. We will be readily able, not just as a perception, but as a felt body sense, to be present with them in a way where we see the transmission of the wholeness. So I'm really excited to share all that. And I have to thank Stephen and the Shift Network again for one thing here that's very generous. I really wanted to celebrate what is becoming a kind of viral spreading of the Enneagram, and the summit was reflective of that by making sure that the greatest number of people could do this course as possible. And so they've agreed to keep the price down from what it would usually be as a celebration for the summit and this spreading of the Enneagram. It's already lower than it would usually be. And then there's the additional $50 discount. And I just want to thank you, Stephen, and the rest of the team for making that generous offering. It really means a lot to my heart. So I hope that I'm looking forward to joining in community with people all over the globe for this holographic understanding about transformation and creating a unitive field for ourselves with ourselves, and for ourselves with our loved ones and immediate circle of influence, and for the world in general.
Beautiful. Well, the generosity in your heart and presence and presentation is very evident, and we really share the mission here of having people come into their own fullness and embrace all of who they are so that we can ultimately be in service to shifting our world. So thank you, Jessica, for today's offering, and thank you for the upcoming Holographic Enneagram, and for all who want to go deeper. This really is the best next step from the summit. So you can sign up at theholographicenneagram.com, and when you do it right away, you get the $50 off plus the bonus of the summit recordings. So thank you so much, and many blessings. Onwards.
Many blessings. Onwards.